Hello, everyone. My name is Fiona King, and I'm a member of the editorial board of the journal Professional Development and Education. PDiE is more than a journal, and for a number of years, we have been involved in hosting international symposia on themes related to leadership for professional learning. We are currently carrying out some short interviews with a number of authors whose articles have recently been published in PDiE. And the focus of these interviews is leadership within technology-enhanced professional learning spaces. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our colleagues today. We have colleagues from Norway. We have Ingrid Helleve, a teacher educator from the University of Bergen in Norway. We have Aslaug Almås, a teacher educator from the Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. And we have Brita, Bjørkelo, a clinical psychologist at the research department, Norwegian Police University College. Ingrid, Aslaug, and Brita are authors of the article, Becoming a Professional Digital Competent Teacher. The article was published in 2020 in PDiE, and the authors have been collaborating for several years through a project called Ethics, Social Media and Teacher Education. And this article has come out of, is one of the publications from this project that they have been working on. So welcome everybody. Ingrid, I might ask or call on you first. Would you like to tell us just a little bit about your article, Becoming a Professional Digital Competent Teacher?
Thank you for asking us. The article's main message is that through teacher education, students have to change their self-understanding from private to professional. From a position of passive participation in social media to a position where they are going to act as leaders for their pupils. In our research, we have focused on Facebook, but there are several. The implications we suggest are that the most important contribution teacher education can offer is to care for possibilities for reflection and consciousness concerning their own position as future leaders of digital communities. What we also suggest is to use cases either from personal experiences or from realistic situations as a tool for this reflection process. In Norway, there is a rich supply of technical devices in schools and society. From 2007, all pupils in upper secondary schools were given a computer from the authorities. Teachers were not invited to participate in the discussion of how to use the device. During the period from 2007 until now, teachers have really worked hard in order to learn how to use the device for pedagogical purposes. However, teacher education has been criticized for not keeping up with what happens in schools. As in many other countries, the last year with COVID has forced educators in schools as well as in higher education to use the technology. And in that situation, Norway has, of course, profited from the good infrastructure. However, I think many teachers have learned during the COVID period that it's easy to lose contact with some of the pupils if the period without face-to-face meetings lasts too long. They just drop out. Here we see the connection to question 2, where you ask what new models of professional learning we might need in order to not just keep up, but also be ahead of the curve.
Thanks, Ingrid, for giving us that context. I think it's really interesting to think that the infrastructure has been there since 2007, and you ended there by asking that question that I'm really interested in. What new models of professional learning might we need? What have you found from your research that professionals do need to not just keep up, but to stay ahead of the curve? I'm not sure who would like to answer this one.
I would like to answer.
Great, Aslaug.
Yes, and I have been working with the National Funded Research and Development Project the last 3 years, where the intention was to enhance the professional digital competence of both teacher educators, teachers from the field of practice, and student teachers. Our Norwegian students have grown up in a digital society with a school system that encourages use of digital tools in learning. But we often overestimate young people's digital skills. They are not tech-savvy and multitasking experts simply because they have grown up in a digital world. For instance, student teachers will need to learn how digital technologies can be used to the better for pupils' learning and in safe ways. They must also learn how to use digital technologies in different didactic, subjective, specific practices. And this calls for teachers who engage in identifying educationally challenging situations, add relevant digital resources, and transform the problematic situation into a constructive and teachable event. Professional digital competence is a complex, dynamic term that teacher educators seem to lack a unified understanding of. It is still in the making. And our recent study reveals that digital competence develops through education. In teacher education, they ask for critical discussions concerning educational possibilities and challenges due to digitalization. And some teacher education institutions in Norway have learning labs where student teachers are introduced to different digital equipment. And in my university, this learning lab is a collaboration between the university and the municipality. Our main focus is to introduce our teachers and students to didactical digital experiences, not just playful activities. The Learning Lab activity is just one step on the way because developing PDiE is a process that will continue after teacher education and throughout work life. And new digital technologies will evolve and change the premises for knowledge work and how they can design for learning.
Okay,
pick up on what Aslaug is saying, that in this paper, The Becoming of a Professional Digital Competent Teacher, we focus on the challenges and possibilities concerning how teacher education may encounter then students in the transition between being the private person and becoming a professional teacher. And as Aslaug is saying, that you can go in through the technical door if you go for modes of learning, and you can also go through the learning door. So what we've been really interested is also in how all the policy documents can ask for increased digitalization of education, but how these are also perceived by the pupils and the pre-service teachers, and how teachers are role models when it comes to how to perform both taking your private experiences and going into the professional and developing these this awareness of how we can work together both in technical skills but also in learning skills.
Thank you, Brita and Aslaug. Really thought-provoking there. A couple of sentences resonate with me, and that we really do have to remember that just because the students have grown up in a digital age, they're not experts. And that there is a huge difference between the private or the personal and the professional, and that we need to allow for that and focus on that. Just based on what you're saying there, then, how do you think educators are exercising agency or leadership in actively shaping opportunities for professional learning and collaboration in this space?
Yeah, I can start by telling a bit about my PhD project, which dealt with collaboration in digital communities among pupils in school and student teachers. I did research on groups of pupils who collaborated online, and also students. And through that process, I learned a lot about leadership and democracy when it comes to online learning. What I learned is, among others, that the role of the teacher and teacher educator as a facilitator and leader is just as important in online collaboration as in physical rooms, and maybe even more. One difference when it comes to leadership is the job the teacher has to do in advance when planning online education. As soon as the participants, either pupils, students, or even parents, start online collaboration, the train has left the station. And the framework and agreements you have to do beforehand. In physical spaces, it's easier to stop the process than to intervene. But maybe the most important precondition for promotion of democratic processes online is what I call the first meeting. Preferably, this meeting should be face-to-face, but even if that is not possible, the leader has an important responsibility in supporting the building of communities based on trust and mutual responsibility for participation. Another issue of importance is to make sure that all voices are heard. Actually, this process is easier to arrange online than in ordinary classrooms. Anyway, we think that if student teachers have the possibility to reflect and learn how to act as professional teachers through teacher education, the possibilities for development of professional agentic behavior increases. That's what we hope.
Okay. So anybody else like to come in on that?
Yeah, in another paper, we showed how access to private negative social media experiences may be one way to make pre-service teachers able to gain access to experiences that may be hidden for them. And that this may again be a way to support how they as prospective teachers are able to deal with situations and issues that may be of ethical concern for their future pupils. So in terms of how leadership comes in, analyzing cases, as we've discussed in our paper that we're talking about today, may be one way to do this in practice, as professional teachers may experience that those arenas for reflection and discussion that we have as we are pre-service teachers can vanish in everyday teaching and workplace and lifelong learning in the 21st century. So then cases may be a way to tap into this, either organized by the workplace or during graduate or continued education, because analyzing cases could then be a mode of learning that connects reflection and discussions into digital competence in ethics, in social media, or in educational practices. So bringing the cases discussions from the educational part and also into workplace learning is a good mode.
Okay, thank you, Brita. And Aslaug, do you want to add anything here?
Yes, I have been working with digitalization and teacher education for many years, and I am sometimes worried about teacher educators' professional digital competence. As I mentioned, our students ask for reflections and deeper understandings of how, when, and why digital tools should be used in teaching. And to what extent are we as teacher educators ready to reflect on digital technologies in different didactic practices and use the students' existing digital knowledge as point of departure in the reflections? The field is rapidly changing, and more studies in developing professional digital competence is needed, I think. And some universities have projects with specific focus on professional digital competence, and it will be exciting to see how they do it and to what extent it works.
Okay, thank you. So you've certainly broken that down and given us, you know, examples of key areas where student teachers are getting opportunities in terms of how they can become facilitators or leaders in the space going forward, and the importance of democratic processes in that journey. The mode of using cases and analyzing those, I can see huge merit in that, and questioning, I suppose, which is really important and not something maybe that we think of all the time, but questioning the teacher educators' professional digital competence in the first instance is obviously a key starting point in all of this. I would just like to thank you all very much for your thoughts today and for sharing your, bringing your article to life. And to just let everybody know that it is currently open access on the PDiE website, and it's in the publication 46, volume 2, 2020. So we would encourage people who are interested to have a look and download the article while you can. So ladies, I'd just like to thank you very much for your time and sharing your insights and thoughts with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark.